Today we're in Chapter 2. We're talking about Section 1, which is settling the West, which I talked about in the introduction. What's going to happen is we're going to talk about before the idea that during the Civil War era, Southerners relied on farming to make money. But now railroads and mining are going to change the United States, and it's going to turn into an industrial nation from different aspects, meaning we're going to focus on different areas and how they are brought to bring the Northeast back to some wealth, especially with that railroads. So just kind of go over what we're going to talk about for the three small lectures. Following the Civil War, discoveries of mineral resources caused miners to migrate to the West. Railroads are going to expand this to connect to mines in the West and the factories of the East. Populations in Nevada, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico, as well as the Dakotas and Montana, grow enough to apply for statehood. And as mining equipment becomes more advanced and large-scale, profits are going to grow, but has devastating effects on the environment. So the first person we're going to talk about is Henry Comstock. He leads to expansion, and it's a yikes. In 1859, he claimed land in Nevada. Land was called Comstock's. He finds gold and silver. He sells this land for thousands of dollars. Not bad, of course, until he realizes that he sold the land and it contained millions of dollars of silver. And it becomes known as Comstock Lode, which is the richest silver mine in history. So what do you think Comstock did? Well, he kept mining for years, but after age 50, he shot and killed himself. He committed suicide due to the regret of selling off the richest gold or silver mine ever. Stories like this are very common, obviously not to the level of Comstock, but the fact of the matter was we sent people to the West in hopes of hitting it rich, thinking life would be very easy. In reality, life was not very easy. Those who made some money made money, but not nearly to the level what they were expecting. To this day, we still study parts of Comstock's Lode, showing here an image of what it would look like, the Bonanza ore, and this is, of course, in California and the Virginia mine at Comstock Lode. But what's going to happen is when this is discovered, people are going to head that direction because everybody wants to have a chance to escape poverty and have their own land and have their own money and be able to do things they want. And when this happens, it creates things called boom towns. Boom towns were prevalent all across the western side of the United States, starting in about the 1860s. Areas where these people flooded to in search of gold and silver, again, riches beyond their wildest dreams. And that example was Virginia City in Nevada. It grew from a few hundred people to a population of over 30,000. These towns had to expand. They created shops, barbers, churches, entertainment, furniture, newspapers, and hotels, which created jobs. So again, when people were scared in the South with not a lot of infrastructure, we had a new place where we could go and find all these things that we needed. Through this, we had to create something called vigilance committees, which is a vocabulary term in your book. These were volunteers that would punish wrongdoers, meaning that we had to be self-police because we didn't really have a government infrastructure in the West as of yet. Some pictures and images of what these pop-up boom towns would look like, having a striving main street, very interesting to see. Hardware stores and watchmakers and jewelers, everything you could possibly imagine, because this is where we thought wealth was going to be. So if we created wealth out there in these different areas, we created cities and structure, things beyond what we actually thought we could possibly do. Here's a good picture of a mine, and the structures are going to be there. You need houses, you need people to survive, doctors and barbers and things of that nature. But because of this wealth, there was also going to be lawlessness and outlaws, meaning people who wanted to rig the system against those who were there working. Jesse James is going to be one of those ones who's celebrated as one of the outlaws of the United States in this time of history. He robbed stagecoaches and banks and trains all across the Midwest from 1866 to about 1876. The largest bank robbery of his history in 1866 occurred, which was $57,000. He was portrayed as a Robin Hood, but there was no evidence of him helping the poor. So, the whole idea was Robin Hood in mythical stories and cartoons. He's supposed to rob from the rich and give to the poor. People viewed outlaws sort of as heroes in the fact that they were kind of rigging the system that was rigged against them. They were getting some of that money back. But Jesse James obviously committed many robberies and murders, so he's still kind of on the negative part of history, but a really interesting read. Other outlaws consider Doc Holliday. Now, Doc Holliday was a famous gambler, gunfighter, and a dentist. He actually went to dental school in Pennsylvania. So it kind of doesn't combine gambler, gunfighter, and dentist. So kind of crazy. But he's an outlaw and a lawman famous in Tombstone, Kansas. He was made a deputy in Kansas, and a famous gunfight versus a group of outlaw cowboys near the OK Corral, which we'll read about in this textbook. So to review these questions, the first part of the lecture is, why did people flock to the West? What's a boomtown? What was the Comstock Lode? And why was there lawlessness in the West? We'll continue this discussion in the second part of the lecture.